House of Stone, hagiographic, trust the sword. Out from mighty Kairadin, the House of Stone looms, long a rival of the old throne on Karakis. Kairadin is today fiercely devoted to the noble heritage of the Karakan people. A firmly hagiographic major house, Stone is a champion of the baronies, often, in the minds of its rulers, more so than the current Karakan leadership and the dominant tendencies of the other major houses. Kairadin was a gift world named for Kai Anaxandros Altiamus, a favorite general and statesman of Passacaglia 53. Little is known of Altiamus beyond records indicating the bestowment of the gift world to him for its taming. Archaeological surveys have found and excavated multiple sites across Kairadin, including frescoes, mosaics, and statues of a figure assumed to be Altiamus engaged in combat against unidentified human enemies. There are little to no records of Kairadin's population prior to its colonization during the Anorum Passacaglia. These remains, along with others scattered across the world, likely point to an indigenous population that was violently suppressed by the Anorum. In the present day, the pre-Anorum habitation of Kairadin is a topic of interest to academics only. The people of the House of Stone consider themselves to be forward-looking people, despite their conservative adherence to rigid structures of baronic nobility and ignobility, and there is little introspection about the origins of their global state outside academia and the odd progressive pocket of Kairati youth. In the intervening years between the collapse of the Anorum Passacaglia and the reunification of the baronic state under the Anorum Tyrannus, Kairadin spent decades as the target of Karaki's ire and military strength. The first world to declare independence from the aging Anorum Passacaglia, Kairadin's Karakan population fought for decades against rule from Old Karakis, first against the armies of Tyron of Delamar, heroic general of the Anorum Passacaglia, then against Tajids after victory over the last Passacaglia. Kairadin's history is awash in blood, cordite, spent solid-state pack batteries, and nuclear fallout. It has never been a virgin world claimed by doe-eyed settlers, but always a fortress cracked open by ragged soldiers. After its final capture and surrender to the Anorum Tyrannus, Kairadin was remade and awarded to the House of Stone during the dynastic Lade. Since then, it has only grown in population, appetite, and power. Today, Kairadin is a titanic industrial and population base for the baronies. It is the largest terrestrial world in the concern, larger than even Karakis, and host to the largest orbital infrastructure and population in the region, and the single largest source of the baronies' military infrastructure and readiness. Historically specializing in mining and heavy industry, the House of Stone is also the major house responsible for the baronies' breakthrough in rapid planetary terraforming, such as the Commensmos system, derived from the earlier Commencer terraforming system, which was used to great effect in many of the house's holdings, including most famously on Ludra's world, the location of the Sanjak rebellion and a persistent sore spot for the house. Kairadin's strong industrial and military culture is evident across its territories. The most feared fighting force across the baronies is the Kairadin elites, a reserve house company kept for personal defense of commanders, nobles, and leaders of the House of Stone. Though few in number, their brutal training, conditioning, and Spartan warrior culture has led to a fearsome, and deserved, reputation. Many of them pilot mechs in orbital engagement in personal defense of a command ship or forward operating base, their mere presence enough to discourage direct assault. With the House of Stone's relatively new colonial holding in the Dawn Line shore, Upper Laran, DS8, still ripe with resources to be extracted and land to be developed, Stone's power as an industrial and capital base for the baronies seems all but assured. Never the heart of Karakan civilization, but always the shoulders that bear it forward, Kairadin under the House of Stone is nevertheless a fulcrum around which the politics, culture, and future of the baronies hinges. Since the dynastic Lade, the House of Stone has become one of the most ardent supporters of the baronic project. A hagiographic house, it is eager to take the lead as the flagship major house of the baronies, and has been positioning its representative to the Baronic Council, Stone Lord Hyderad Kanamos, to replace the Prime Baron. Stone's vision for the future of the baronies is decidedly more conservative and muscular than the current approach, and one that may seem uncouth to federalist houses and downright objectionable to liberal ones. The House of Stone is quite active in the Dawn Line shore. Its banner company, House de Kairati Boulder Company, has transitioned the bulk of its administrative staff to the shore along with its frontline personnel, and set down roots on Upper Laran, where it manages the field operations of dozens of house companies and free companies. A storied force, the Boulder Company has fought on the front lines against Harrison Armory since the First Interest War, and continues to engage the Armory via proxy wars to this day. Around 3% of the population of the house is noble. Notable minor houses of the House of Stone include House Altia, descended from Altiamus, House Canamus, and House de Kairati, One other notorious minor house bears mentioning, though it has been formally reduced from stone's rolls, House Ludra, which was responsible for the rise of the Ungratefuls movement through its ill treatment of its subjects. House of Sand, hagiographic, eternal, precious, vast. On Little Tilimsan, a hot desert world with shimmering oceans at its poles, the House of Sand oversees a mere billion souls split between two polar arcologies, founded during the Hypothecalian period, and with its early history marred by brutal civil wars over control of its precious minerals. Tilimsan is the least populated world of the Baronic concern. Its history, however, is no less poor for its size. Tilimsan is 90% of the diameter of Cradle and it orbits the inner ring of its star's habitable zone. As such, it is a hot world, with large swathes of its equatorial regions essentially uninhabitable, or, as many enterprising Tilimsani have discovered, livable through great effort. Beautiful and dangerous, most Tilimsani prefer the damp tropical poles, where the bulk of the world's liquid water has formed cap oceans. The northern pole is home to a large single landmass with numerous internal seas. The southern pole is crowded with scattered archipelagos and island chains. The vast majority of Tilimsan's population lives around these poles, with access between the two guaranteed either by atmospheric or orbital flight, long solar trains, or, for the daring, desperate, curious, or foolish, grueling overland crossings. The house's small size belies its influence. Sand's wealth mainly comes from its extraction of rare minerals needed for critical components in high technology, energy weapons, and large-scale printing. In the earlier periods of Karakan history, this rich bounty led to brutal civil strife, eventually culminating in the dominance of House Laran, a monopoly that allowed the house to leverage diplomacy heavily in its favor and earned it an unpopular reputation as a house of ambitious graspers, schemers, and manipulators, a reputation that somewhat rings true to this day with the House of Sand in general. The house is known to maintain one of the most sophisticated intelligence apparatuses in the baronies, adjacent and closely tied to baronic intelligence, with a large and highly integrated network of spies, diplomats, and informants across known space. These agents feed information in a great steady torrent across the scorching sands to deep Tilimsan. Tilimsani assassins are highly trained and extremely effective, though rarely deployed, and never publicly acknowledged. A visit from the Sandmen is dreaded across the baronies even in the most secure staterooms and chambers of office. This reputation is part of the house's strategy of manipulation and influence. During the First Interest War, the House of Sand pledged its proto-house companies, led by its banner company, the Company Tempeste, to the campaign in the Dawn Line shore. Across the colonial front, Sand's forces fought alongside the federal Karakan armies and the early house companies of Stone and Remembrance, trading strikes with the Armory's legions in rapid small-scale skirmishes that were highly effective due to the house's outsized intelligence efforts. This contribution earned Sand a gift world, DS7, known to the baronies as Crown Garden, once the Interest War concluded. Like the houses of Remembrance and Stone, the House of Sand is nowadays split between its original holding in the concern and the colonial frontier of the Interest. Unlike conservative Tilimsan, Crown Garden is a cosmopolitan meeting world for travelers arriving to and departing from the shore, one of the closest baronic worlds to the Long Rim Transit Corridor. Crown Garden's trade and transit districts are rife with galactic travelers and the eager enterprising souls that stand to make a profit from them. The House of Sand is ideologically hagiographic. House Laran and House Hardy are some of its more storied minor houses, though its current representative on the Baronic Council is from House Chiron. Only 3% of its population is noble. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.